Totally Inappropriate show has a huge fan base and even more jokes that sometimes go way over our heads. Are you ready? Let's get schwifty. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and like this video. Today we'll show you 10 inappropriate jokes in Rick and Morty you might have missed. I know this isn't the time. We all know Rick is a genius scientist with certain problems that make him completely reckless and hilarious on the job. Of course, every smart person has their downsides, and Rick just can't control his drinking habits. This often results in having some of the most hilarious and inappropriate scenes, like this one. This moment happened in Season 2, Episode 8, called Interdimensional Cable 2, Tempting Fate. Coincidentally, it's also the very first Rick and Morty episode to be rated mature. At the beginning of the episode, Beth and Rick have a conversation while trying to take care of Jerry. Beth suddenly asks Rick why he would keep mutant bacteria in a pint of Cherry Garcia, and he casually replies that the second freezer drawer is his, and he can do whatever he wants with this. Imagine having a casual conversation like this, all while you're trying to save the life of a patient. It seems a bit weird, doesn't it? It's definitely a comical scene, but does it fit in the hospital setting? While this definitely isn't the raunchiest joke in the series, it's still inappropriate considering the job Rick has. We've heard stories of doctors discussing strangely bizarre things during an operation before, and this Rick and Morty scene just confirms that it's kind of inappropriate. Szechuan sauce joke. A lot of Rick and Morty jokes have been turned into memes and are popular worldwide. We bet you've heard of this one even if you don't watch this show. While this is not a totally inappropriate moment in the show, we find it unbelievably hilarious. Adult Swim featured a 24-hour stream of Rick and Morty's Season 3 premiere episode, which gave a shout-out to the one and only McDonald's. In the episode, Rick finally revealed why he roamed around through alternate realities, and you won't believe his answer. He said it was so that he could get another taste of the Szechuan dipping sauce McDonald's carried as a part of a tie-in promotion with the Disney movie Mulan. While that's definitely not inappropriate, we know that Rick himself is known for never really telling the truth and could very well be lying. So whether or not he really meant it, this caused a stir among the fans who really wanted to see it happen. Even McDonald's got in on the joke, and fans are also bringing in theories that the 2018 release of Mulan would be the perfect time to bring out the Szechuan sauce once again. Whether or not this was intentional, it was definitely one of the hilarious moments. What a good way to make McDonald's be aware of the show. Wall Street. We've heard a lot of Wall Street jokes over the years, but Rick and Morty took it to a completely different level. This quote belongs to Season 2's episode called Morty Night Run, and of course, Rick is the one who said it. Morty asked him what kind of business he does in a garage and admitted that it sounds a little bit shady. Rick then sarcastically replies that nothing shady would ever happen in a fully furnished office and refers to Wall Street. He asks Morty if he knows what those guys do in their fancy bedrooms and then, of course, in a true Rick style, refers to dipping certain things in certain illegal substances and wiping them all over each other. He then points out that he goes around and does this type of business in public because he's not the shady one. We won't tell you what things and substances Rick was referring to, but we're pretty sure you'll be able to figure it out. Wall Street doesn't seem to mind because the Wall Street Journal gave the show a shout-out and even wrote about the show's second season. We'd bet they'd change their minds about the show if they actually saw the second episode of Season 2, or maybe this just proves that even Wall Street has a good sense of humor. Morty's Glip Glops. The Rick and Morty show is no stranger to some of the weirdest innuendos and inappropriate jokes. Most of them are, of course, started by Grandpa Rick, who seems to have absolutely no filter and says whatever is on his mind. Rick is the type of person that can easily get away by saying the most bizarre things because he masks it into something else. If you watch the show, you've heard of Glip Glops. They're Traflorkians, a small species of green aliens that make a few appearances throughout the show. Of course, Rick has an interesting term for them, and it's even more interesting as he explains it. He calls it Glip Glops, and says that it's a combination of some of the most derogatory words having a baby and then being raised by other words you should never say. He then proceeds to address the Traflorkians as his Glip Glops, all while Morty looks very much concerned. To be fair, if we had a grandpa that's as crazy as Rick, we'd probably be concerned too. We won't tell you what Rick actually means by calling Traflorkians Glip Glops, but we're sure you can imagine it was pretty inappropriate, even for a show like Rick and Morty. We're not sure what's weirder, seeing little green aliens on this show, or Rick's inappropriate jokes. Rick's burps. Rick and Morty doesn't hold back when it comes to presenting characters with no filter, and Grandpa Rick definitely fits that description. Rick's burps are nothing new, but there's actually more meaning to the way this genius scientist burps. Yes, we're not kidding. His belching might just mean more than a regular gas passing. His burps are now a huge part of Rick's persona, and they even go as far as being included in many inappropriate jokes we've heard on this show. We have to admit, they make us feel uncomfortable every single time. But after we found why Rick continues to belch his words, it made us appreciate them a bit more. We found a secret meaning behind his burps that somehow makes them even more hilarious. Trust us, you'll appreciate Rick's terrible manners when you hear about this one. Have you ever heard of a comedian called Foster Brooks? This famous actor was best known for his hilarious impressions of men under a substance, and his impression included burping out words in the same way as Rick. Sure, you might think it's completely disgusting, but if there's anyone that could pull off burps, it's probably Rick. Well, it turns out his burps aren't really an original thing because Foster Brooks' tipsy persona made him a pretty popular comedian. We can imagine Rick's belching might gross out quite a few people, but we hope you're able to appreciate the hidden message behind these burps. Snuffles. One of the probably most bizarre scenes on this show happened in the episode Lawnmower Dog. And trust us, this is bizarre even for a show like Rick and Morty. The title of the episode is a reference to the Lawnmower Man, which actually inspired this episode. But before we get on to the actual joke, did you notice that Rick mistakenly calls the dog Ruffles? It might be his old age. Don't forget that he is a crazy grandpa after all. But Ruffles was also the name of the dog in a project called Dog World, which belongs to Justin Roiland, the co-creator of the show. We suppose we'll never know whether this was intentionally done or not, but we do know that the bedroom scene with Snuffles was actually intentional. Now, this particular scene has a very inappropriate joke that easily gets over people's heads. Snuffles changed his name to Snowball and said that Snuffles was actually his slave name. According to him, Snowball fits him better since his fur is pretty and white. We will let you figure out why he decided to change his name, but we're sure you'll be able to get to what Snuffles, or should we say Snowball, is referring to with his fur color. It's just one of those moments that's definitely inappropriate, and if there's anyone that's able to get away with inappropriate jokes like this, it's Rick and Morty. Ethan feels like a girl. Another quite terrible joke happened in the episode called Anatomy Park, which is the third episode of Season 1. Rick and Morty is no stranger to terrible and inappropriate jokes, but we wonder if you were able to catch this one the first time you watched the show. The scene focuses on Ethan, Summer's boyfriend. We're not sure when the two became romantically involved, but they reveal their relationship in this episode. But many fans haven't noticed that the scene where he described he felt like a girl has a much more inappropriate joke. Ethan describes how his older brother took him fishing once, in the bushes, and then ended up crying, saying his brother made him feel like a girl. We won't go into too much detail over what we think actually happened to Ethan, but it's safe to say that the event wasn't nearly as funny as it was traumatizing. We're sure you can figure out what exactly made Ethan feel like a girl in this terribly inappropriate joke that most people actually missed the first time they watched the episode. The title of this episode is, of course, a tribute to Jurassic Park, and you can actually find several references to the iconic movie throughout the episode. Their entire culture is built around what? This slightly inappropriate joke did make us giggle. Did you catch it? In Season 2, Episode 8, we get a special little cameo from Werner Herzog, who plays the alien in a wheelchair. Many fans have thought this was actually an impression of the famous voice actor, but no, Werner was actually on The Rick and Morty Show. The episode revolves around Jerry having to decide if he wants to lose his manhood to save the life of an alien leader. Doesn't it sound like a typical Rick and Morty plotline? Well, the aliens seem to have had enough of humanity, and they proceed to tell Jerry how the human world is still undeveloped. Werner continues with one of the most hilarious Rick and Morty monologues ever, even though it might just be slightly inappropriate. He says that the entire human culture is built around their manhoods, and well, we kind of have to agree with him. The alien in the wheelchair then proceeds to say he's tired of manhood-related humor and has been to parties where he saw the most bizarre displays of this culture. Jerry, of course, the hero that he is, defends his own species, saying humans definitely understand genocide as they do it sometimes too. The entire joke definitely saved the episode, but Werner did bring up a good point. Morty and Summer. Did you ever catch this joke in Season 1? This is one of the most hidden scenes that many have missed the first time they've watched the series. Morty and Summer have a very typical brother and sister relationship. They fight, they get upset, and sometimes they're best buds. Nothing out of the ordinary, right? Well, do you remember the episode where Rick and Morty visit Mr. Goldenfold's dream? Morty gets visibly freaked out when he notices a bunch of bizarre and somewhat flirty aliens. But he's even more freaked when he spots his own sister in Mr. Goldenfold's dream world. Since Mr. Goldenfold is actually Morty's math teacher, this is definitely one of the most inappropriate jokes. But it gets even better. After they return back to the real world, Summer goes up to hug Morty, and to no surprise, Morty gets upset at the fact that he just saw his sister with far fewer clothes on in the dream world of his math teacher. Morty slightly pushes her away, and gives us a very uncomfortable face, which could easily be missed if you don't pay attention. We feel you, Morty. We'd be upset too. It's definitely not a pleasant sight. Get Schwifty. Get Schwifty is an anthem to all Rick and Morty superfans, but you have to admit that it's just a little bit inappropriate. Of course, the show should never be watched by kids in the first place, but we're not sure how we feel about the lyrics of this 1-minute-long song that has over 7 million YouTube views. Here's something you probably didn't know about this joke of a song. Get Schwifty was written by Justin Roiland, the co-creator of the show, and he even makes a cameo appearance in the song. Can you spot him in this picture? We'll give you a hint. Justin has ginger hair in real life. He definitely knows how to get Schwifty. Get Schwifty belongs to Season 2, Episode 5, where a giant head demands to see a hit song performed and starts a religion around it. Of course, Rick being Rick, comes up with one of the most bizarre and slightly inappropriate songs called Get Schwifty. The song, in which Rick proclaims that you gotta get Schwifty, also talks about taking off your clothes and forgetting all about your bathroom manners. The song has since then got a few popular remixes and is still a popular reference to the show. We love that Rick and Morty can sometimes goof off like this and forget that they're still on air. We bet there are plenty of more hidden jokes and scenes to rewatch of this show, so make sure you comment below and tell us what we've missed. That's all for 10 inappropriate jokes in Rick and Morty you might have missed. For more videos like this,